7:38, Nashville's morning news on Super Talk 89.7 WTN. Dan Mandis here along with Michael Patrick Leahy. It is our daily visit at 7:35 with our friends from the Tennessee Star. And man, there's a lot of local news that is out there today. And a lot of this news was broken on Friday on the Matt Murphy Show. I want to play one more audio bite for you from the interview that Matt did with Cameron Sexton, Speaker of the Tennessee House, where he basically threw the state Senate under the bus, saying that it was the state Senate that dropped the ball because they refused to take up legislation that could have kept Shaquille Taylor behind bars. I want to remind you of this one audio bite.
I mean, Cameron, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it feels like you're saying if the Senate had been willing to take up some of the legislation the House passed in the special session, that Taylor might have been in jail or incarcerated in a mental health facility.
Correct.
I mean, that's what Cameron Sexton says, and that was something that he said multiple times throughout the interview. That was almost an exasperated sounding Matt Murphy, like, really? Is that what you're going with? So, Michael Patrick Leahy, you've heard that interview. I've broken it down myself. What are your thoughts on all this?
So, Matt Murphy asked the right question of Speaker of the House, Cam Sexton, and that answer, our team spent the entire weekend reviewing that claim. And we have a lead story at the Tennessee Star, TennesseeStar.com right now. Headline, fact check of Tennessee House Speaker Cam Sexton's claim that alleged killer of Belmont freshman would have been in custody had the state Senate acted. Mm-hmm. False. Dan, not only is it false, it is reckless and divisive. And it really raises questions about the ability of Speaker Sexton to maintain his leadership of the House. Now, let's get to the issue, right? Mm-hmm. That claim that if they'd only passed what we passed, we looked at what they passed. They passed a bill in the House, 7027. All that bill did is it said that if you're charged with a misdemeanor and you do a mental evaluation, the state pays for it. That's all it did. It would have had no impact on the Shaquille Taylor situation.
So it didn't require any kind of mental evaluation?
Well, the mental evaluations are required in the law. This said if you are charged with a misdemeanor,
okay,
your mental evaluation will be paid for by the state, not by the county. Okay, so that would have gone into effect October 1st. It would have had no impact on any of the legal matters that let Shaquille Taylor run free, because his bail for his felony auto theft arrest was set on September 21st by Nashville magistrate Stephen Huzupfel, only $10,000.
Yeah.
Now, we looked into that. We talked to several defense attorneys, and they told us that in any other county, that bail would have been either $75,000 or they wouldn't have granted bail. But the key element here, where I think Cam Sexton has been absolutely dishonest is the word here, and carrying water for District Attorney Glenn Funk, is the claim that when Taylor's aggravated assault with a weapon charge, which happened in August of 2021,
yep,
when the three-doctor panel said, well, he's not competent to stand trial, but we can't send him to involuntary incarceration for treatment. And the judge a month later said, yeah, let's let him loose. District Attorney Funk could have appealed that. It's right there in the law.
Yeah.
It's in our story. And the judge didn't have to dismiss it. In fact, Dan, in other counties, judges in similar circumstances have sent the perpetrator to treatment.
And usually when they go to treatment, we talked about this on Friday, usually when they go to treatment, 30 days or so afterwards, they eventually are deemed competent enough to go through trial and to be able to understand the questions that the prosecutors are asking and so forth.
There's a study, 2019, in the Journal of Psychiatry and the Law, in which they state, 81% of those who go to treatment are deemed competent 120 days later.
See, what I don't get, and I understand that there are some people that are deemed incompetent and so forth. But, this line, and I played this earlier, I'm gonna replay it, where you have Channel 5, and they talked about they talked about this. I'm just going to play it again and get your reaction. They were covering the story about the previous shooting where the Shaquille Taylor had shot at this woman. Her 2 kids were in the back seat. This is the one from 2021. And this is what Channel 5 said.
Now, it is important to note, state and federal law prohibits the prosecution of persons found to be incompetent, so that's why the case was dismissed. Doctor said Taylor wasn't a threat to himself or others, so he couldn't be involuntarily committed to a psychiatric hospital.
I am desperately trying to figure out when they say, doctors say that he was not a threat to himself or others, well, dude shot a gun at a car with a woman and 2 kids.
News Channel 5's report there is absolutely wrong. It's biased. They're part of the criminal coddling culture of Metro Nashville, Davidson County. That's not true at all. What they just said, that they had to dismiss the case, totally not true.
Well, and it could have been, as you say, they could have been appealed. They could have done something. But I also just, from the standpoint of the statement that he was not a threat to himself or others, I don't understand, because the past evidence showed that he was clearly a threat.
Well, let's look at this. In this instance, he was a threat. This 3-judge panel, the 3-doctor panel said, he's not going to be eligible for incarceration, but he's not competent to stand trial. That's illogical, right?
Well, absolutely illogical.
But in this instance, you had poor judgment by the judge, Judge Dalton, who bought that, when that judge had the authority to send them into incarceration or treatment, and the district attorney, under Tennessee existing statute, had the authority to appeal it. Didn't do it. Why? Because they're criminal coddlers.
Well, and I know that people, if people are new to WTN and new to talk radio, they may not understand what we mean by criminal coddlers. I say soft on crime policies all the time. But all you need to do is look up, Google soft on crime policies and bail reforms and these kinds of things, and you'll see exactly what we're talking about. Maybe I'll do a segment on this later on in the week, but people know what we mean by that. What they mean by that is they don't want to send people to prison. They don't want to send people to jail. It's all part of equity, and these guys are just misunderstood. Some people say it's racist to send people like Shaquille Taylor to jail. And they say, as far as, and I'll be fair here and read what Channel 5 says about his disabilities. They say that Shaquille Taylor, 29, has an intellectual disability and language impairment, according to court records obtained by News Channel 5. That determination meant he was not able to participate in a trial where he was accused of shooting into a car in 2021 off Dickerson Pike. They say Taylor was a co-defendant in the case, and he was originally charged with 3 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. But again, they said that he was deemed incompetent to stand trial. And they talked about how he has the limited ability to provide his attorney with relevant information about his case. He literally admitted that he did it. What more does he have to give as far as information goes? Yeah, I did it. Well, then lock him up.
So the standard, though, for competence, as attorneys will tell you, is can they help in the conduct of their defense, right? And the 3-judge panel said, okay, he can't do that. Well, the judge could easily have said, that's fine, but I'm sending him for treatment.
Yeah.
Could have done it, didn't. Because that judge, Angelita Dalton, is soft on crime and coddles criminals. The district attorney, Glenn Funk, could have appealed it. It's right there in Tennessee statute. He chose not to. Why? Because he's soft on crime and he's a criminal coddler. In other counties, in 93 other counties, that Shaquille Taylor would have been sent for treatment and then would have been determined most likely competent to stand trial.
But they didn't do it.
Didn't do it. Coulda, shoulda, woulda, didn't. And let me just step back. Speaker Sexton has done a grave disservice to the Tennessee General Assembly by making a blatantly false statement here on the airwaves of Talk Radio 98 of Super Talk
99.7 WTN.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Thank you, Dan. But he's done a grave disservice to the Tennessee General Assembly. And he needs to retract that statement immediately.
Well, do you have any insight as to the relationship between Sexton and Jack Johnson? I've noticed when the special session was going on, I sensed a little bit of butting of the heads. Neither one would really talk about it, but it just kind of felt like that. Like the Senate wanted to do some things, the House wanted to do a lot of other things, and there was a general disagreement there. And now it seems like it's blown up into this.
You know, I met with Speaker Sexton about a year ago, and he said something that was profoundly true at that time. The way the Tennessee State Constitution works, if the Tennessee House, the head of the Tennessee House and the head of the Tennessee State Senate work together, they can effectively run the state.
Yeah.
They can. Mm-hmm. But he's chosen in extraordinarily bad judgment to pick a fight with the state Senate. And frankly, he doesn't have the support of the Tennessee House in picking that fight. So frankly, I think he's made a huge error in judgment, not just here, but in other instances. And I think his ability to hold on to his power as a speaker I think is going to be in doubt. I'm happy to talk to him in person about it. But he had invited us to a conversation a couple weeks ago, and it never happened. So, look, I think he's acting recklessly, and you can't lead the Tennessee House if you're acting recklessly.
So, coming up in January, is there a way to? I mean, clearly there's a way to fix this loophole. Now, this piece of legislation that they passed.
Let me stop. It is false that this is an existing loophole. The current law would have allowed for this Shaquille Taylor to be incarcerated.
Yep. Okay.
Again, now this is something being echoed by all of the local mainstream media, mm-hmm. all of which, by the way, owned by large out-of-state corporations. But it's just a falsehood. It's a series of falsehoods.
So now what? So then that's the question. Then now what? The spotlight is going to be on the district attorney, mm-hmm. Glenn Funk, mm-hmm. because and for me the big one is the three judges, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So where do we go from here? Do you believe that now that this is going to be part of a bigger conversation about the district attorney, Glenn Funk?
Yeah, the thing is about this.
And why is Sexton trying to protect Glenn Funk?
That's a good question.
That's one of my things. It's like, so you're throwing Jack Johnson under the bus and the state Senate, but Glenn Funk is the one that chose not to push the envelope and get this guy to go into... Not to
aggressively pursue the law.
Not to aggressively pursue.
Exists. You know, this is a problem that we have in the state of Tennessee and elsewhere. The legislature can pass a law, the Tennessee General Assembly can pass a law, and the governor can sign it, but it has to be implemented in the field. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you right now that in Metro Nashville, Davidson County, it is not being implemented at all. Every step of the process, every person in that process is a criminal conflict. And they want to basically set criminals free.
From the DA to the people that work in the DA's mm-hmm. office to the judges, the
mental health
evaluators.
It's totally different in other counties in Tennessee. I mean, Shelby County.
Well, I was going to say, what about Shelby County?
Shelby County and Davidson County want to coddle criminals and evade the law. In the other counties, they want to follow the law aggressively.